Welcome back to Epic Movie Recaps. Today I will show you an activity, show, blood and gore movie from 2016 titled The Thinning. Spoilers ahead. Keep an eye out and fare thee well. In the near future, the UN requires countries to cut their population by 5% every year in order to combat overpopulation. America gives its students a standardized test every year and executes the students with the lowest scores. The test is called the 10 to 241 or the thinning. In Austin, Texas, students prepare for the thinning, which takes place. Simon and his more seasoned sister, Lena, sit at a work area in his room as Lena attempts to coach him. Their more youthful kin, Corinne and Joey, sit on the bed messing around. Indeed, even with Lena's assistance, Simon gets baffled and says he can't learn sufficient before the test. He asks Lena for something and gives her cash in return for a contact focal point that he can use to swindle. At the point when he gives it a shot, it shows the responses to the numerical questions in his notepad. She advises him that he needs to annihilate it after the test. Lena then gets a call from Dr. Prakash, who tells her that her mother had been attempting to get released from the emergency clinic against clinical guidance. She requests that the specialist slow down her mother and lets her kin know that they need to go. At the medical clinic, Lena catches her mother marking herself out. The specialist pulls Lena to the side and uncovers that her mother is just deteriorating. Despite the fact that they can't treat her assuming she returns home, he makes sense of that, making her agreeable may be the most they can accomplish for her. At the lead representative's chateau, only 12 hours until the diminishing, Blake passes a couple of guardians in the corridor. He offers to make them something from the kitchen, yet they decline. All things being equal, Blake escapes the house to his vehicle where he tracks down his sweetheart, Ellie. She frightens him and jokes that a similar stunt generally deals with him. At the point when Blake demands that this time would be the last, they sober, recalling the following day's test. Ellie won't discuss it and on second thought chooses to show him something that she demands is confidential. She drives him to the Bilskis' manor, where they strip and swim in the pool. Subsequently, they kiss in the vehicle until Ellie concedes that she's terrified about the test. Then Vince, one of the guardians, gets them and takes Blake back to his father. Blake's father, lead representative Redding, addresses his child and lets him know that while it's okay to have some good times, that he needs to pick better minutes. He demands that Ellie is an interruption that Blake can't bear until he gets past the upcoming test, and his last test 1 year from now. From that point onward, Blake can be diverted until the end of his life. Lead Representative Redding gives Blake an embrace before he leaves the room. 3 hours before the diminishing, monitors watch a strategic school encompassed in steel walls, security fencing, and cameras. Understudies approach the office, watched by monitors in dark veils. Simon chances upon another understudy, drops his contact focal point, and can't track down it. The watchman orders him to continue to move. Blake approaches Lena as she watches understudies expressing farewell to their folks. He requests a review guide, however she makes sense of that she parted with the final remaining one. Kellen, her companion, gets some information about Blake, yet she demands that she scarcely knows him. The gatekeepers really take a look at understudies for bamboozling gadgets, and when one blameworthy understudy is found they pursue him down and catch him with a net. Kellen utilizes his father's security admittance to see the security film, and sends it to a correspondent he professes to be aware, named Wendy Banks. He makes sense of that he has her email, however she doesn't appear to answer his tips. Inside the school, Blake attempts to comfort Ellie. 15 minutes before the test starts, the gatekeepers secure the school. The understudies accumulate in their study halls and educators audit the standards. Miss Birch lets her understudies know that she's glad for them, and that the inquiries are extreme, however not intended to deceive them. She likewise demands that there's consistently an opportunity. A subsequent instructor, Mr. Glass, likewise goes over the guidelines and reminds the understudies that the test is a precise fitness evaluation. He then arranges them to start and the lights in the study hall faint. Every understudy gets a tablet and starts to step through the exam with the tablets illuminating their countenances. The educators caution the understudies when they have a moment staying, then declare the finish of the test. As the understudies hang tight for their outcomes, some give indications of stress. They wriggle in their seats, cry, or look awkward. Kellen is among them. In the long run, names of the understudies who fizzled are perused out. With each name called, an understudy is taken out. Some participate, some ask, others require force. Kellen is feeling significantly better that he passed, yet Ellie fizzles. The excess understudies are praised for passing and delivered to the rec room. Lena sees Simon being driven away with the bombed understudies and Blake calls his father to ask for him to effectively save Ellie. However, his father demands that he needs to submit to the law. Blake lashes out and pummels the storage. He pursues them and assaults a gatekeeper with a fire quencher. He advises Ellie to run as the gatekeepers are occupied, however she is come by the group and got. After 1 year, the following test is 24 hours away. Lena finds a spot at a table with her 2 more youthful kin. They're encircled by boxes and one holds a leaflet that shows that her mom has died. Miss Birch visits to bring the family some additional meal, and attempts to comfort Lena about the way that Corinne would be stepping through her most memorable examination. In the meantime, Blake resolves in his room. He actually has an image of Ellie stuck to his wall. He starts to record a video on a tablet, saying that assuming that somebody was watching it, he would currently be dead. 3 hours before the test, Lena tests Corinne as they approach the school and embraces her prior to sending her inside. Lead Representative Redding talks about plans for a declaration with Vince. It is prepared to actually take a look at that everything. Then, at that point, he checks in with Blake. He attempts to persuade Blake that nothing should be possible about Ellie, however Blake excuses him. Blake leaves for school and Vince sees him put a bundle in a postbox en route. Lena and Kellen get together at the school and discuss the way that this is their last test. Kellen concedes that he is anxious yet perceives that Lena likely isn't a direct result of how shrewd she is. Indeed, even as they outperform the time where Guardians were hoping to see their youngsters. He catches wind of one more watchman who'd been gone after by somebody who professed to be an instructor, so he requires every one of the educators to be brought to a holding room. Lena and Blake discuss Lena offering cheats to frantic children for the test. Blake passes judgment on her for exploiting them until she uncovers that it was a frantic endeavor to pay for her mother's medicines, which actually wasn't sufficient. Blake apologizes for passing judgment on her. They begin heading towards the server room through the vents. Lead Representative Redding's meeting is intruded on by fresh insight about the delayed closure at the school and the anchor person gets some information about it. The lead representative staggers with next to no data, yet demands that things will be settled soon. Bricklayer tends to the instructors and advises them to introduce their IDs and keycards. The lead representative calls him to get insights regarding what is going on and furiously advises them to sort it out rapidly. Blake and Lena go on through the vents until Blake falls through one and into a pool beneath. Lena hops in after him to save him and gets him to the edge of the pool where she revives him with CPR. They get dry garments from the storage spaces and change, turning their backs to one another for security. Lena finds another vent and they move back in. In the rec room, the understudies who pass start to get eager with the gatekeepers and one of the watchmen thumps an understudy. Kellen records it on his telephone and sends it to Wendy. Lena and Blake arrive at the beyond the server room, however the keycard drops out of Lena's pocket. With the keycard on the ground beneath the vent, they get to a science homeroom where Lena gets a magnet to look for the key. They make an excess of commotion and as a watchman draws near, Lena can get once more into the vent while Blake stays in the room. He attempts to stow away, however the watchman gets him. At the point when Lena takes a stab at looking for the key, a watchman notification and gets it. Be that as it may, the gatekeeper ends up being Blake in a watchman's uniform. He tells her that he'll head towards the diminishing. In the holding room, Miss Birch recommends to Mr. Glass that they get a beverage together and as they be a tease she takes his keycard. Miss Birch then, at that point, shows Artisan her ID and Mr. Glass keycard to remove doubt from herself. At the point when Mr. Glass doesn't have his, Bricklayer feels that he's the deceiver. Lena shows up in the server room and tracks down a PC. She attempts to utilize her keycard, yet it requires Artisan's secret phrase. She messages Kellen to get his assistance just to figure out he's disconnected. Kellen accepts Lena's message right as his father returns the power. He sends her a video of Bricklayer composing in his secret word, permitting her to duplicate it and get in. She checks Corinne's grade first and is feeling much better to see that she passed with a 86%. Then, she really looks at hers to find that she got a 98% yet fizzled. In the meantime, Swim had passed with a 42% and Blake passed with a 15%. She likewise really takes a look at Ellie's score and finds that she fizzled, however got a score of 88%. She sees news inclusion of lead Representative Redding guaranteeing that Lena, subsequent to bombing her test, had gone after a few watchmen, killing 2 of them, and got away. He finds fault for the closure on her. In the meantime, Wendy sees the video that Kellen sent of the watchman thrashing a passing understudy, and she understands that what's going on doesn't match the authority story. She answers Kellen and communicates the recording. At the point when Lena understands that Kellen conveyed film from inside the school, she sends him pictures of the score. Then, at that point, Artisan and Victor spot her on the cameras and she runs. Blake tracks down the diminishing and attempts to fool the gatekeepers into carrying the bombed understudies to the entertainment lobby. However, they will not acknowledge orders from anybody other than Artisan, so he attempts to battle the watchman. Lena is gotten by Artisan, demanding she has evidence that she passed. However, he sends her to the diminishing where she finds that Blake has been curbed. Kellen accepts Lena's evidence of the grades, both hers and Ellie's, so he sends the pictures to Wendy. Wendy provides details regarding the documentation she'd got about the adulterated grades. She uncovers that Lena fizzled notwithstanding having the most noteworthy score in the school, while Blake, child of the lead representative, had passed regardless of getting the least score. At the chateau, Vince demands that lead representative Redding needs to close this down and let Lena go, yet Redding demands there's another move. Artisan calls to request his endorsement to start the diminishing, which he denies, saying that the rundown should be updated. Whenever changes are made, Lena is liberated and informed that she had passed. She goes to Blake and kisses him. She is then constrained from the room and Blake is constrained into her seat. Swim is likewise taken to the diminishing. With changing degrees of frenzy from the children, the watchmen approach and infuse them. Blake blacks out and the school is removed from lockdown. Lena reunites with her younger sibling outside, embracing her with tears in her eyes. She's additionally joined by Miss Birch. Kellen embraces his father, both grinning and alleviated. The guardians whose children don't get back to them start to grieve as Wendy reports that Artisan Ruler has been brought in to be interrogated in regards to his contribution with the changed grades. Wendy's report proceeds with that doubts of Redding's inclusion were limited whenever it was found that his child had been among the bombed understudies. Redding reports that he will assist with exploring the events and go on by utilizing Blake's inability to speak to citizens, that he was very much like them. A huge truck moves toward another office. The bombed understudies, including Blake, are brought down into the structure by lift. They find a plant that forms the tablets the tests are taken on. All things being equal, she's more anxious about Corinne than herself. On the manner in which inside, Kellen runs into Swim, a quarterback that proceeds to menace another youngster. They keep thinking about whether he's really adequately shrewd to have endured this long. 15 minutes before the test, the school is secured once more. At the manor, Vince approaches lead representative Redding about his child and shows him the bundle Blake had attempted to convey. Inside is Blake's tablet where he recorded a video making sense of his arrangement for deliberately bomb the test. In the video he makes sense of that if his father has any desire to remain by this framework, he'd need to remain by the framework that murdered his child. The lead representative requests for his child to be brought back, yet the school is secured and he tosses a seat in dissatisfaction. Then he advises the other guardian to leave the room. Back at the office, Blake holds on to step through his exam and a dull-haired young lady named Sarah sees Mr. Glass. She'd laid down with him to attempt to get a passing score. He doesn't meet her look. In a homeroom of more youthful children, Miss Cole shows her understudies a video before their most memorable test. The video is made by an organization called Ashuru Worldwide and comprises of an animation earth, making sense of why the test had been executed as a method for managing overpopulation. It records how a few different nations killed their older or limited how much youngsters a couple could have, yet that America just allows the savvy children to live there, permitting it to turn into the best nation once more. The video depicts the children that bombed the test as simply assisting the planet with feeling improved. Miss Cole ventures outside to require a moment for herself. A watchman tells her that another person can give the test in the event that she's not available, however she declines the proposition. She gets back to the study hall as the children finish the video and applaud. She guides them to step through the thrilling examination they'd been rehearsing for. The more established understudies additionally start the test. From the control room, Bricklayer Lord watches over them and gets a call, which he replies. Blake completes his test from the get-go in the homeroom and Mr. Glass takes note. Among the more modest children, Nathan lifts his hand for help on an inquiry, yet Miss Cole isn't permitted to help him, so she instructs him to give his all. When the test is done, Miss Cole advises the understudies to stand up and follow the pioneer on the off chance that their name is called. The educators read out the names of the bombed understudies. Among them are Nathan, Sarah, and Lena, however not Blake. Artisan calls the city chairman to affirm that the exchange was fruitful and that Blake is protected. The city hall leader then, at that point, endorses the initiation of the diminishing. Blake looks as the bombed kids are sent a few doors down. Miss Birch races to block a gatekeeper and demands that Lena is the smartest understudy she's had and that she can hardly imagine how Lena might have fizzled. The watchman checks with his bosses, yet they demand that everything is good to go and he's told to send Lena off. The educator clutches Lena briefly and slips her a keycard, advising her that there's generally an opportunity and advising her to move away. In the rec room, understudies are complimented for making it. They eat and move to music. Miss Birch spots Mr. Glass playing with another dull-haired understudy. Somewhere else, lead representative Redding makes strides in front of an audience for a major declaration. He begins by discussing every one of the ways he's better things during his experience as lead representative. He discusses the troublesome yet important choices that must be made. At the school, his discourse plays on a television at the party. Blake sees it and leaves. As the lead representative keeps on examining how the diminishing is certainly not a boorish practice, yet is rather driving in development and a work to create the populace all that it tends to be, the bombed kids are being driven down a lobby. They are told to remove their garments and to get ready for disinfecting. Lena slips the keycard into her mouth to conceal it. As Blake clears his path through the foyers of the school, his father declares his bid for president. The bombed kids are given new garments, then, at that point, prompted a room with a couple of lines of seats. They are each handcuffed to a seat and the encompassing gatekeepers draw needles. A portion of the children start to overreact. In the passage, Blake acts hurt to bait a watchman towards him, then, at that point, takes him out. Then, he advances toward the control room and sneaks inside after Artisan leaves it. He attempts to utilize the PC, yet it requires a login, so all things being equal he stopped the capacity to the school right as Bricklayer has found the oblivious gatekeeper. A portion of the bombed kids are liberated from their limitations and the watchmen attempt to recover control. Lena avoids during the confusion, opening the entryway with Miss Birch's keycard. Bricklayer requires Kellen's father, Victor Wood, to be shipped off the control space to fix the brought-down framework. The watchmen get him from the party, demanding that it is only a minor blackout to the other visitors. Bricklayer then, at that point, minds the bombed kids, who are back influenced quite a bit by control. He inquires as to whether they'd done a headcount, and finds they hadn't. They find that Lena is missing. A gatekeeper sees Lena attempting to get out an entryway, however she presents herself as Miss Birch and lets him know that she'd considered him when she'd seen an understudy run down the flight of stairs. When he turns his back to her, she assaults. Blake appears and both of them bring the gatekeeper down. Lena and Blake talk and Lena demands that she could never have bombed the test. Blake in the midst of that he flopped deliberately, however that his father got him out. Lena understands that something is off and when Blake sets off a caution they move into a vent to get away. Artisan concludes that the school will remain in lockdown until the circumstance is settled.